So one day Asus called us up and told us that they have an exclusive product they wanted us to check out. Now I thought it was the ROG phone and I got really excited when they told me about this, but when they came to the office, they handed me this phone. Now I was slightly underwhelmed by this because, as most of you know, I've already done the review for the ZenFone 5, which is right here. So you have to understand why I was quite underwhelmed by this until they told me that this is actually the ZenFone 5Z, the most highest end of the ZenFone 5 series that comes with a Snapdragon 845 processor. So I thought to myself, let's do a comparison between the ZenFone 5 and the ZenFone 5Z, because the difference in price is almost 600 ringgits, and I want to see whether the price is justifiable for most of you to buy the higher end ZenFone 5 phone. So let's talk about the designs of this phone, and as you can see from the start of this video, I was confused with both these phones because the designs are exactly the same. The cameras are still positioned on the top left of the phone, the fingerprint sensor is still positioned in the middle of the phone, we still have the Asus logo and of course the disclaimers at the bottom here that it's designed by Asus, and of course on the sides we have the exact same positioning for the volume buttons and the power buttons, and of course on the sides we have the SIM tray. And at the bottom here, we have the same ports, the USB Type-C port and of course the 3.5mm headphone jack. So even though the ZenFone 5 is a mid-range phone and the ZenFone 5Z is a flagship phone, they still managed to put the same screen quality on both these phones. And I have to say, the color reproductions on both the phones are equally beautiful. They have the equal amount of color levels. Yes, both the phones still have a notch, and most of you know I'm not really a fan of the notch, but both of the phones still have that feature where you can tap the notch and the notification icons will expand to show you more of the notifications rather than making it being blocked by the notch. So now let's get into the face unlock and the fingerprint scanners. I've already put my face into both these phones and my fingerprints, so let's check it out. Now for your reference, the phone on my left hand is the ZenFone 5Z and the phone on my right hand is the ZenFone 5. So let's do the face unlock. So yeah, as you can see for yourself, the ZenFone 5Z was slightly more faster than the ZenFone 5. Let's do the test one more time just to get a confirmation on this. Yeah, definitely the ZenFone 5Z has a much faster face unlock feature. So let's get over to the fingerprint scanners on the back of the phone. Okay, looks pretty much the same. Let's do it one more time. Bit more faster on the ZenFone 5 compared to the ZenFone 5Z. Let's do it one more time just to eliminate any errors. Yeah, it's slightly more faster on the ZenFone 5. So now again, the fingerprint scanner has many variables to it, because sometimes your fingers might be oily or sometimes there might be some dirt on your fingers, so that could affect the registering of the fingerprint on the back of the phone. Now let's take a look at the performance difference between these two phones. Now just for your references, both these phones are connected to our Wi-Fi that is using a 5 GHz connection, so everything should be the same. And as well as both these phones are fully updated to the latest software. So with that guys, let's do the test. Alright guys, so now before we start this test, let's just make sure that no apps are open in the background, and also for the sake of this test, we are going to enable AI boost, which most of you already know that I didn't feel much difference with the AI boost on or off on the ZenFone 5, but for the sake of this speed test, let's just leave it on. Let's start with Facebook. So as you can see here on the ZenFone 5Z, it does launch up much faster than on the ZenFone 5. Now let's check out Instagram. Roughly the same, but it did load faster on the ZenFone 5 compared to the ZenFone 5Z. But other than that, the speed is pretty much the same. Alright, next will be YouTube. So it did load faster on the ZenFone 5 compared to the ZenFone 5Z. That's pretty interesting. Okay, now the last test is we're going to open up Chrome and see which loads faster. So together now, as you can see on the ZenFone 5Z, it loads faster. Let's open up our own website. Okay, so you can see here, together now. Okay, again, it's a bit more faster on the ZenFone 5 compared to the ZenFone 5Z, which again, it is Pretty impressive. So now we are going to go into more intensive apps, for example games. Now I have a game here called Shadowgun Legends, which most of you know I use this game in my reviews a lot because the game has a very high graphic requirement for the phones, and also it takes a long time to load up the game. So I want to see the difference in speed when it comes to booting up the game on both these phones. Now one more time, this is the ZenFone 5Z, this is the ZenFone 5, and let's get the app launched. I'm going to try to press it both at the same time. Alright, initially it booted up faster on the ZenFone 5, but let's see the loading. So as you can see for yourself, it did load much faster on the ZenFone 5 compared to the ZenFone 5Z, which definitely makes sense. After all, this phone comes with 2 extra GB of RAM and of course a Snapdragon 845 processor comparing to a Snapdragon 636 processor and 4 GB of RAM. So now the last test is the camera test. Now, just for your information, both these phones come with the same cameras on the front and the back. The front has an 8 megapixel camera, and on the back we have a 12 megapixel and an 8 megapixel dual camera setup. So with that guys, let's take a look at some of the pictures that I've taken between these two phones. And as you can see for yourself, now this is where things get pretty interesting because on the ZenFone 5, the color has shadows to it. You know, it is a bit more richer in color because of the shadows, I assume. And on the ZenFone 5Z, it feels a bit more overexposed, as though there was too much light hitting onto the table. And as you can see for yourself, our office is not that bright because we have our curtains closed. So I would expect a bit more shadows on the pictures, but the ZenFone 5Z tried to overexpose the pictures so it's a bit more brighter over there, and that makes the color not so natural anymore, especially if you can see with our PS4 controller over there. Now, if we take a look on the pictures itself, as you can see, there is a bit of a pillar where the sun is hitting the pillar and then there's a shadow of the pillar. If we take a look closer, we can see that the color on the ZenFone 5Z is more richer. Once again, it is much more richer compared to the ZenFone 5, where it feels a bit overexposed. So you don't really get that very nice rich color, you get a much washed out color over on the ZenFone 5. There is a small little build construction on the center of the image, and if you can see closely to that construction of that image, the colors again on the ZenFone 5Z is much more richer compared to the ZenFone 5, as it feels again a bit of washed out. So if you want a very nice color for outdoor shots, then I really recommend the ZenFone 5Z. However, if you want something, if you take a lot of indoor shots, then you might want to consider the ZenFone 5. The front camera for a selfie on indoor seems a bit more better. It seems more natural compared to the ZenFone 5 when taken indoors. The color is a bit over the top. I feel like the post-processing of the image goes a bit too much, so the color doesn't seem very natural. So as you can see here, the outdoor shot, now this is where things change again. On the ZenFone 5, the shot looks much better. It doesn't look overexposed. As you can see on the top, you can see the clouds and where the sky meets. Whereas on the ZenFone 5, it is way overexposed. You can't even see the skies anymore. It's just a white image over there. Now, if we actually go into the image, again, this is where this surprises me again. On the ZenFone 5, the detail is much better. Especially if you can see with my beard and my hair, I think the beard is the most obvious one here. You can actually count the individual strands on my hair, on the beard. Whereas on the ZenFone 5Z, it's kind of like a blur, so it's pretty hard to make out how many strands of hair is there. And finally, both these phones come with the same 3300 mAh battery. And surprisingly, both these phones last exactly the same amount of hours, even though one has a flagship processor and another has a mid-range processor. So that is pretty impressive. So guys, there you have it. Now that was a slightly long video, yes, I understand, but we had to check out the differences between the mid-range ZenFone and the flagship ZenFone. As you can see for yourself, the fingerprint and the Face ID is slightly better on the ZenFone 5Z. So if you're looking for a nice face unlock feature, then we definitely go with the ZenFone 5Z. However, when it came to opening up apps, now both these phones I believe performs pretty close to each other. Now we did see some faster speeds on the ZenFone 5Z compared to the ZenFone 5, but there were certain apps that the ZenFone 5 loaded up much faster. And of course, when it came to gaming, now that is hands down the ZenFone 5Z is the winner. After all, it has a Snapdragon 845 processor, 6GB of RAM. And then we come to the cameras of both these phones. Now that is where it becomes a bit slightly confusing, because both these phones come with the exact same sensors on the front and the back, and the camera software is the same. But when we did our tests, we realized that in certain conditions the ZenFone 5Z shot better images, whereas in certain other conditions the ZenFone 5 shot better images. So it's a bit tough here. But what we understand from the cameras of this phone, if you're going to be taking a lot of outdoor shots, if you're going to be taking a lot of scenic shots, then you want to go with the ZenFone 5Z. However, if you are planning to do a lot of indoor shots, then you want to go with the ZenFone 5. But then when it comes to the selfie camera, then it gets a bit more confusing again, because in the outdoor shots, the ZenFone 5 selfie camera is better than the ZenFone 5. Because if you saw it yourself, the exposure is much better on the ZenFone 5. So guys, there you have it. That is the small comparison that we have done between both the ZenFone 5 and the ZenFone 5Z. Now it comes to the pricing of the phone. So the ZenFone 5 retails for 1,299 ringgits, whereas the ZenFone 5Z with the 6GB RAM version retails for 1,899 ringgit. So that there is a 600 ringgit difference. Is that 600 ringgit justifiable? If it comes to me, my honest opinion, I would pay that extra 600 ringgit, because for me, I want a phone that performs the best at every single time. I prefer a phone that comes with a flagship processor compared to a mid-range processor, because I would not have to worry in the future if games become more powerful or there are more powerful apps out there that require a powerful processor. I would not have to worry about that, because the mid-range processor on the ZenFone 5 is not the highest end mid-range processor. It is still somewhere in the middle. So that worries me for future proving. My opinion, it is justifiable. What about you? Do let me know if you think that 600 ringgit is justifiable from what you just saw we did with both these phones. Let me know in the comment section below, and if you like this video, do give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe, because we take out videos like this every single week. And of course guys, I will see you in the next video. Double check.